So, welcome, Mr. Mike. Thank you for joining us. Uh, Before we begin with the questions, we would love to hear about you through your own words. If you can just tell who Mike is.
Sure. I'm Mike Magee. I'm the president of Minerva University for the last 4 years. We are a global university that offers a residential program in some of the most culturally and economically vibrant and interesting places in the world to students from over 100 nations. I'm passionate about it because my lifelong passion has been the power of schools to bring young people from very different backgrounds into community to learn. I started my career as a college professor after getting a PhD at the University of Pennsylvania. I taught philosophy and literature, and specifically about language and social change in democracy and human rights movements. I left because I wanted to found my own schools. So I founded a nonprofit organization that built schools, and then a second nonprofit organization that did national education policy in the United States, and then was fortunate enough to arrive at Minerva.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to ask you that, everybody, they say that they want exceptional talent. We're not really very good at developing it. What's the biggest reason that we keep failing at it? And it happens everywhere, regardless of the country's resource development. Why are we constantly failing to develop talent?
It's a great question. I think we all constantly say that we want young people to learn to be able to solve the world's most complex and important problems, but we give young people almost no opportunity to practice solving complex problems. One of the things that we've done in the Minerva University education is design a foundational first-year curriculum that is all about interdisciplinary problem solving. It's all about learning how to use a variety of different approaches to solve the complex problems that we all care about, and to beginning to understand how important culture is to solving those problems. That you can have the best technical solution to a problem in the world, but if you don't understand the culture that you're operating in, that solution is likely to fail. So that's the type of practice that our students get to have in our project-based learning curriculum, but it's still very rare in global higher education.
So you encounter a lot of students coming from various cultural backgrounds, various systems. So across cultures, across systems, how do you recognize genuine potential? Something that doesn't show up on paper, maybe, if the child is not good at excelling in tests, in traditional tests, or not very good at self-promoting themselves, how do you recognize potential amongst those criteria as well?
So we have students from over 100 nations who have come and learned at Minerva University. In any one of our residential programs around the world, there are likely to be students from over 36 nations. So we have deep experience over a decade supporting learning for learners from almost every part of the world. And we're not just assessing whether they will thrive at Minerva University by giving them tests. We've designed our own assessments to see whether students have the critical thinking skills, the creative thinking skills to thrive within our very rigorous academic program, and the global residential experience that we curate. But we're also interested in what they have to tell us about why they want to come to Minerva, what they think they will gain by the experience that we offer, and what their own passions are. We ask every student, what problem are you passionate about solving? And we're very interested in what the answer to that question is. They might not yet have a problem that they've identified that they'll be passionate about solving, but everyone who comes to Minerva University has a very interesting answer to that question that tells us a lot about who they are and whether they might thrive in our community.
So coming to fast learners, sometimes they learn at a pace that is so far ahead than sometimes the systems can handle. And in a way, sometimes that makes them isolated. So what kind of structural change should an institution employ so that these children, these fast learners can thrive without feeling that isolation?
I think there's several things. In a residential program like ours, it's very, very important that we do our very best to foster a deep sense of belonging within the community, where you have that sense of belonging and the support that it provides and the safety that it provides, you're much more likely to take the kind of risks in your learning that will lead to academic success and career success. So that sense of community and belonging and safety is very important to us. It's what I think allows our students to travel to cities all over the world as part of their undergraduate program.
I'm good. So a lot of high achievers nowadays, they get coached on everything. I mean, they know the certain skills need to be developed and they are getting external support for those. But what parts of growing up personally, intellectually, do you think demands personal rigor rather than external intervention?
It's a great question. I think there's an irony that as academic rigor has increased, it's also become in some ways more frictionless for students. They have so much support and coaching and hand-holding that not so much in terms of knowledge, but certainly in terms of skills, they're not developing in the way that we would like to see that develop. We believe at Minerva in the value of productive struggle, and we try to design learning experiences where students can struggle productively. Part of that is the problem-solving work that they engage in at Minerva. We really do try to, from the moment they arrive at Minerva, put all our students in front of very complex problems that they do not actually have the knowledge to solve on their own, but that have to be solved collaboratively. And we want them encountering cultural difference from the beginning that may very well be hard for them to understand and navigate, and relies on a set of skills that they have to build over time. Not every experience is an easy experience for Minerva University students. And by that, I don't mean only in the classroom, but the cultural experiences they have, the experiences they have navigating some of the most economically and culturally vibrant and interesting cities in the world, including Hyderabad.
So we often talk about transferable skills, but then there are certain things which completely translates once the context changes, while there are certain things that remains uniform across a range of context. So what separates knowledge and capability that remains useful even when everything around you changes?
So there is a set of, we think, durable skills that translate across economies, cultures, geographies. And not only do we try to teach and develop those skills with great intention in all of our students, we also want our students to be highly self-aware about what those skills are, how they are developing individually, and where and in what context those skills will be useful. And it's actually a skill to know when you don't have the content knowledge that you need and the expertise you need to solve an important problem, and to know how to supplement your own learning in a way that is self-directed. So those are things we are always teaching at Minerva University. I think our students are exceptional at learning fast, understanding where their content gaps are, and doing what they need to do to close those gaps, whether it is reading on their own, taking an additional class, finding a mentor who can support their learning. Those are all skills, I think, which are highly adaptive to new environments and cultures and economies.
I think the ubiquitous opinion would be that experiential learning is more effective, but then it is sometimes harder to deploy at scale. What do you think? What exactly does experiential learning capture that a traditional classroom setup cannot? And are there any limitations to it?
So you're exactly right, I think, to say that it's both better and much more difficult to implement well. And this is an ongoing challenge for us as we grow. We are going to be growing our undergraduate program from 650 students to where it is now to almost 2,000 students in the near future. And that scaling will provide some challenges around things like experiential learning, which we have to operationalize all over the world. Nevertheless, we very much believe that it's worthwhile because of the value it brings to to learners. I'll give you one brief example that I experienced yesterday. We joined one of our partners in Hyderabad, Community Pure Water, to visit the Kiravena village, about a 2-hour drive from Hyderabad, to see how they had installed clean water filtration systems in the village. That sounds like just a technical solution, but it's so much more complicated than that. Not only did they have to have the technology for providing clean water to the entire village and the school that is in that village community, they had to figure out the right approach to servicing that technology. And they decided not to provide that expertise, but to actually train local people to do all the maintenance on the technology so that it would be sustainable over a long period of time. They had to convince school children in the village that it made sense to carry water bottles, which was not self-evident in that village. They had to build trust in the community that they were going to be partners who were there for the long term and wouldn't abandon the community in ways that were unpredictable. And they had to think about their solution in the context of the government's massive investments in infrastructure in the region and how that might change over time. So this is, to me, the epitome of good experiential learning, where you are with great partners getting to experience a solution to a complex problem in a culturally specific context that you can see from all angles and develop a deep appreciation for the way that the culture, economy, and geography impact the technical solution. Those are the kind of experiences that we curate for our students in Hyderabad, in Berlin, in Buenos Aires, in San Francisco, in Tokyo. And I think they're very, very powerful learning experiences.
A very interesting thing that Minerva does is having their students create learning, assessments for others. I mean, teaching others through proper structured sessions. What has that revealed about their leadership ability, which you would not have been able to capture through traditional assessments?
I think it is, again, it's what we see from our own students, particularly as they go through our program, is that they are highly motivated learners with deep cultural empathy, an orientation to service. They think Minerva has given them quite an extraordinary opportunity to advance their lives and careers, and they want to expand access to that opportunity. We can only accept so many students into our undergraduate program. But when our students commit to service and commit to teaching and sharing what they are learning and what Minerva has taught them, it allows us to expand our impact all over the world. We currently have just launched new courses that teach Tokyo high school teachers and Tokyo high school students about the science of learning. And that's another way that we're now giving back to our partners in cities around the world. For Tokyo teachers, it's an opportunity to think about how to bring what we know from cognitive science and other disciplines about good teaching to life in their classrooms. For Tokyo high school students, it's actually an opportunity to think about how to have more agency over their own learning, how to self-direct their own learning in a way that will be meaningful to them.
So you have personally worked across the K-12 segment, charter schools, universities. What do you still think that each level of education is still getting wrong about students?
I think our expectations for students at every level are too low.
Too low.
And sometimes that is informed by cultural bias in very pernicious ways. That has been my experience, certainly in the United States. And I think it's true in many parts of the world. And I think when you challenge students in the right way, they rise to the occasion and they learn more and they learn faster. And it has enormous social benefits as well, that it has a profound effect on their own self-esteem, on the pride within their families and their communities, on the social conditions within their communities. So, well, this is something I think we all should be reminding ourselves every day when we work with students. They're capable of more often than we think they're capable of, if we challenge them in the right way. The other thing I would say is, from my own experience as someone who built 16 K-12 schools, from their programs to their buildings, this is very hard work. And it's work that you need to commit a lifetime to have an impact. You can't drop into a community for a few years and expect to have a sustainable impact. And I hope that everyone working in education takes that to heart. This is a lifetime of work to make a real difference. We are now at Minerva University completely redesigning our global residential model precisely for this reason, so that we can make much longer term, much more consistent commitments to particular cities as part of our program.
Children nowadays are growing up with digital tools far more earlier than we would have imagined, and obviously from an impressionable age. And if this is not handled correctly, it would have jarring effects on how they perceive the world. What do you think? What does smart intervention look like in this regard?
I have 3 daughters who now are 25, 22, and 18. So this is on my mind all the time. I saw them grow up as the online experience evolved dramatically. And now I'm watching them as young adults as AI takes over our worlds. I don't know that I have great solutions personally. I'm a philosophy professor, so I only know enough about technology and AI to be dangerous. But I'm engaged with our AI professors all the time, with our students who are in STEM fields. And I guess what I would say is my biggest concern is I see a world emerging that is increasingly frictionless and excessively positive. And I don't think that's good for young people. I think it's bad for their mental health. I think it's bad for their motivation. And I do see a connection between the effect technology is having on us and increases in anxiety and depression that worry me a great deal. And what I mean by this is a frictionless world is a world of swipes and likes, where everything is seamless. You don't have to struggle to do anything. You can have clothing or food at your door as long as you're wealthy just by pressing a button. And when you are on a social media platform like Instagram, you post a picture of yourself for the sole purpose of having 200 people tell you how beautiful you are. And that is not reality. And on some level, we all understand that that is not reality. And I think it has a very peculiar effect on our minds that I don't think is positive. What I see in our students, at their best, is they are in community together. They are not fixated on their phones. They're seeing each other. And they're going out into Hyderabad to experience the culture, and relying on each other to navigate that complexity. And it does build their self-esteem. It does build their sense of hopefulness. It does build their sense of identity in very profound ways. So I hope that we can find the right ways to use technology, because these technologies are profoundly helpful in some ways, but maintain our humanity in the process.
So your students, they study how algorithms can discriminate. So of all the human biases, which one scares you the most, because it's going to scale rapidly once it's put into technology?
That's such a good question. I worry about many different kinds of bias. I think, to me, the greatest danger in the world stems from our fear of each other. They're ultimately cultural biases. And they lead to a kind of tribal suspicion that in a world that is as heavily armed as today's world is just extremely dangerous. It's dangerous locally and it's dangerous on the global stage. In the United States, we have an epidemic of gun violence. That is, the source of that violence is in hatred and suspicion. And so I worry about those biases most of all. We ask our students when they come to Minerva University to put those biases aside and try to see each other with open eyes and open minds and an open heart. And I think that is very important to the future safety and sustainability of the world. There's other more practical biases that we spend a lot of time teaching our students about. I think one of their favorites is sunk cost bias, which is one of those biases that prevents us from changing, even when we know we need to change. So yes, that the understanding of bias is an essential part of learning at Minerva.
So you encounter students, like we discussed, coming from various cultures, and each of them come with their own sets of belief as to where their capabilities lie, or how much are we, how much do we have the potential to achieve. So does this belief gap ever affect where talent ends up going? And if that is so, how does the university intervene to correct or motivate them?
Yeah, it definitely does prevent some young people from realizing their full potential. When young people don't believe in themselves, they often create artificial constraints that aren't really structurally there. But when they do believe in themselves and are properly supported, it's just extraordinary what they're able to achieve. So this is, again, where productive struggle comes in. The experience of overcoming obstacles successfully builds belief in yourself. And we try to give students as many opportunities to practice that as possible. Again and again, they are coming up against experiences that they don't think they can overcome, but that they do overcome. And every single time they're learning a lesson about themselves. So I think this should be part of the design of any university, whether you're traveling the world as part of a program or not. The other thing I think that's very, very valuable in this regard is good mentorship. When someone you admire tells you that they believe in you, it helps you to believe in yourself. So we also, through our civic partnerships with T-Hub in Hyderabad and others, we try to give students these opportunities to engage with people who maybe are a little older than themselves and have accomplished a bit more, who they admire, who can tell them that they are capable, that they are impressive, that opportunity is waiting for them on the other side of this journey. And I think that's very helpful too.
So you have always maintained that original thinking stems from exposure to experiences and perspectives, broadening your perspectives. If we had to engage in a hypothetical, if a government comes to you and says that they want to enhance the creativity of their nation, of the students of their nation in the next 10 years, what would you build? How would you do that? How would you approach it?
I mean, I would build Minerva University. There's a few features of Minerva University that I would encourage any government to support. One is exposure and engagement with globally diverse communities is profoundly helpful to innovation and entrepreneurship and understanding complex systems. So we've seen this for over a decade now. When an Indian student comes to Minerva, they leave Minerva more entrepreneurial, more innovative in their thinking, more sophisticated in their understanding of complex systems, but no less committed to India. This is kind of the magic of it all. You can engage in this global community and, if anything, be even more committed to your community and its success. So that's one thing I would emphasize. The other is, you never become entrepreneurial unless you're allowed to practice taking risks. And I think whether it's government or communities or families, it's often our instincts to protect students from risk. But creating space where students actually have the safety to take significant risks and to learn from failure, it is critical to vibrant, entrepreneurial, innovative economies.
So obviously, Minerva is doing something which traditional institutions are not doing as of now. Yes. What role do you think innovators have to play? Where can they intervene and give an exit ramp to these traditional practices so that new age thinking can come into play?
So first, anyone who's involved in the innovation space, I think, has to be right in the middle of our dialogue, our national and global dialogues about the future of education. And they have to be vocal about the educational and learning experiences that mattered most to them and that made them successful innovators and entrepreneurs. Because the institutional leadership within universities and schools needs to hear this. I think the future of education and of schooling requires collaboration with our most innovative and entrepreneurial companies, NGOs, government agencies. These should be nationwide collaborations to design the learning experiences and institutions of the future. Because no one sector can do this alone.
So you have worked with what I can assume are exceptionally talented people throughout your career, and you've also grown. I mean, starting from teaching in a classroom to building charter schools to now running Minerva. What has shifted in you in the way that you view talent now? I mean, what is there something that you used to believe before that you don't believe anymore? I mean, how has your internal compass changed?
Yes. Well, I've tried to eliminate some of my own biases. When I started my first nonprofit organization, building schools across a state in the United States, I placed too high a premium on people who had advanced degrees from very fancy universities. And I thought that was a proxy for how talented and capable they were. And I only learned through hard experience that those degrees had almost no predictive validity about whether someone would be good at their job working with me. And so I started to simplify my thinking about hiring talented people. And I always asked two fundamental questions, which was, are they curious and do they hustle? So deep intellectual curiosity and hard work are the most important things to me when I think about hiring anyone. And I think this is even more true in the age of AI, because motivated people can learn in a self-directed way so much faster. The access we have to knowledge in every field, and not just to knowledge in every field, but to some amount of AI-generated coaching and teaching at every field now, is game-changing. But it's very hard to teach someone hard work. It's very hard to teach them curiosity. That's my